According to Experian's 2019 consumer debt study, it found that consumer debt in the United States stands at $14.1 trillion. Meanwhile, Americans carry an average of $90,460 worth of debt. According to the study, for Ericka Young, she knows this story all too well, climbing out of $100,000 worth of debt with her and her husband when they first got married, and Ericka has turned that into a 15-year business career as the owner and founder of Tailor-Made Budgets. She's a financial coach that achieves smiles on her clients once she helps them get out of financial jail. She joined me this week to go over the tips of the trade and how we can all achieve financial independence. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. Alrighty, so Ericka, if you're ready, we'll welcome you to the program, and we're excited to talk to you about financial fitness this afternoon. So great to see you, and thanks so much for being here.
Yes, thank you so much for having me.
So Ericka, I know that you've dedicated your professional career to helping people get out of debt, and you want to tell people today that making a budget is not such a bad thing.
That's right.
So can you tell me all about your efforts to help people get out of debt?
Yeah, absolutely. So, my husband and I started off like everybody else with a whole bunch of debt. You go to college and debt follows you home, and then you got to figure out how to pay that off. And I feel like one of the things we wanted to make certain that we did was not leave our children in debt or not continue that same cycle with them. And so, one of our first missions, our first goals was to get out of debt and stay out of debt and then help our kids do the same or to at least avoid it themselves. And it took us 5 years, but we did get out of nearly $100,000 in debt when we first got married. We spent, those first 5 to 6 years figuring it out. And then I wanted to help other people do the same thing. And so I, started asking around. I asked my pastor and some friends and different people along the way. When we got out of debt, is this something that you need help with? Do you see the value in a budget, or how does that work for you? Do you need help with that kind of stuff? And I realized that lots of people needed help, and so I spent a year developing a business plan and working with people for free and to understand what the real need was and how I could help fill it. And I enjoyed it. I just got such a big satisfaction out of people having their light bulb turned on, that moment where they understand how the budget fits into their financial life. And now I've been doing this for 15 years and I've got lots of successful clients who have seen freedom as well.
Well, congratulations on such a success.
Thanks.
And I'm also curious to know, you said you got out of debt with your husband, Chris, who
Hmm.
I did in reading about you. And I also know that you also want to help couples also
Yes.
find a way out of debt. So could you tell me about the journey of sort of navigating getting out of debt with your husband and the highs and lows of that journey as well?
Yeah, absolutely. Honestly, the journey started because I had a one of those come to Jesus meetings with my husband. So he's the one who said, "Hey, we need to stop using these credit cards." And I was an engineer going to work every day and having lunch with people and paying for these lunch and I was putting it on credit cards. And so I wasn't really able, honestly, to afford all of the dining out I was doing. I wasn't telling my husband. And so we had to sort of have a reckoning with the fact that I wasn't being 100% truthful. And that started us on a path of let's start tracking our money. And it took some humility, actually. I was the breadwinner at that time. And for us to be successful, I knew I had to give something up. And one of those things was the notion that using the credit card was, a right that I had or something. And it could have driven a wedge between us. And I chose to, reflect on why I was doing this and keeping up appearances and I let that go. And so we started that journey together. And I think we have to figure out as couples, what are you willing to let go of in order to pursue financial freedom, debt freedom, have more money in savings, enjoy a vacation without credit cards attached to it. And that was the very first small step towards me figuring that out for myself. Um, and it does take some humility. And I think that it's paid off. Honestly, this career has lasted twice as long as my first career. And I'm really thankful that I've been able to see other people have similar and greater success as well from that.
And tell me, what do you, for people watching who may be struggling with consolidating their debt, what are the top three things you tell people when assessing the best way for them to get out of debt?
Yeah, that's a good question. The first thing that I tell people to do is have a reality check. You need to add up all of your expenses by category. So if you currently do not know how to look at your finances, the first thing is think about, do you know how much you spend on groceries? Do you know how much you spend on clothing per month? Do you know how much you spend on gas? What are your utility bills? If you are unaware of how much these bills cost on a routine or regular basis, then you're a bit out of touch with your finances. And so you've got to have a reality check. It's like waking up and looking in the mirror and saying, this is who I am without makeup, without doing anything to my hair, without getting my clothes spruced up. Look in the mirror and see what the reality is, because we will dress up our finances to make it feel better, look better. And if we don't face the reality of the situation, we won't know what to do. The next thing is, once you know that, you can actually create a game plan. And I think a budget is that game plan. It is simply telling your money where to go before it leaves your hands. And if you are able to tell your money where to go, you're being intentional, you're being proactive. And that needs to be the thing that will help you routinely stay on top of your finances. And then the last thing is have a get out of debt plan. Your budget can tell you how much money you have to put towards your debt reduction or savings or whatever your goal is. And so the debt reduction plan means just plug in the number your budget says that you have available into the plan and see how long it's going to take you to get out of debt. And so I think for a lot of people, they make this very difficult because we allow our emotions and what we feel we ought to be doing, and we let our passions and our spending control it. And we've got to be in the driver's seat of our finances. And that's the three steps that I think it takes to get you there.
And tell me, what would you tell people who are uh, tempted to sort of break the budget? Because I know once you create a budget, it's awfully tempting to sometimes cheat on it, I guess,
Yeah.
for lack of a better term. So, what do you tell people about the importance of sticking to a budget and resisting the temptation to spend money?
The first thing that I would say in resisting the temptations that are out there that will keep you off budget is that honestly, it's simply going to take you longer. Face facts. If you don't do what the budget says, it's going to take you longer to get to whatever your goal is. And so you've got to sit with that and know that there are going to be some consequences of not, you know, sticking to the plan. But the other thing is that I think you need to understand what your must have is. What is the thing that you're going to break the budget to get? There is a time in my life where I was going to get my hair done. I just was. And so I had to have it in the budget. I did learn to not do it so often and what I needed to do in between getting my hair done. But that is something that if I really wanted it, I was going to break the budget to do it. And it costs you something. And so people need to understand what their must have is and see how you can fit it in. A budget doesn't have to be depriving. It doesn't have to be beans and rice all the time. Put in the stuff that's really important to you, and it will be easier to stick to the budget. And honestly, if $50 is the difference of you having a little fun or having that must have or what have you, that $50 might be the one thing that's going to help you be consistent for the long haul. Because I'm not going to never dine out for 5 years to get out of debt. That's not realistic for me. But I also, in that time period, did not need to spend $500 on dining out. So you have to think through, what are you willing to give up? And then also, what are you willing to do in order for you to be successful and consistent?
And I want to take a minute to extend my congratulations to you, because I know in 2017 you became a published author.
Yes, thank you.
Congratulations on that. So can you tell me about your book, uh, Being Naked and Afraid, 10 Money Conversations Each Couple Has to Have?
Yes, absolutely. So I always knew I was going to write a book. I didn't know what I was going to write on. And it became clear when I looked at my client base that half of my clients were women and half were couples. And I wanted to help fill the gap for those who may or may not be ready to jump in with coaching, but needed a little bit of help. And I started to begin with the couples. I realized that there were some things that go beyond the numbers. And I find that if we miss out on the fact that money is largely not about the dollars and cents. I hate to break it to you, but it just isn't. And so in the book, Naked and Unashamed, 10 Money Conversations Every Couple Must Have, I go through 3 different parts. I talk about the money past, all of your childhood experience up until you became adult and lived on your own, your money present, all of what you have done as an adult to get to where you are financially and facing the facts, that reality check. And then your money future. Where do you want to go and why do you want to be there? And so these 3 sections are broken down because, to be honest with you, your money past is affecting you today. And your money future is what you're looking forward to and why the budget even makes sense. And so it's important that you go through this process so that you can see how each of these areas of your life are affecting the dollars and cents. Most of the heavy lifting and the work is in the middle right now. How you create a budget, looking at your credit report and what it is that you need to do to be a bit more successful in that debt reduction plan. But it bears repeating that your past has made you who you are today, and your future is what you look forward to tomorrow. And so we still need all aspects of that.
I'm also curious to get your thoughts on it as a minority business owner and
Yeah.
someone trying to make it from an independent business model. What do you think is the future of African American entrepreneurship in America? And what would be your tips to anyone trying to start a business who is a minority?
Yeah. First of all, it doesn't take a whole lot of money to start a business. Start where you are. I started my business with $200. I used that $200 to get a logo made and to get some business cards and some letterhead. And I sent that letter that explains who I am, what I'm all about, why I'm passionate about this. I sent that to 100 people. Now, I know a lot of people don't do snail mail nowadays,
Not
but
anymore.
right. But people like to get something in the mail. And so that's why I did it. And honestly, it was 15 years ago. what I would say to people now is to don't feel like you have to have a whole bunch of startup capital. Find a way to get started now. Now is your time. People are looking for African American entrepreneurs, business owners, in this moment. Our country is shifting, and so it is time. Like, don't wait, and don't feel like you have to start with a whole bunch of capital. People are looking for you, and they're needing what it is that you have to offer, and build from there. Then you can reinvest along the way, but find ways to make some dollars on the front end before you start investing hundreds of thousands of dollars. It shouldn't take all that, and most of the time you can build the business on top of itself along the way.
And could you tell, I am wondering if you have sort of a life motto or philosophy that you live by in both business and life, whether it be a financial independence and living life as well?
Yeah. One of my favorite quotes, I would say, is um, the best preparation for the future is the present well tended. And that applies to budgeting, cash flow planning, money management, all of, but it applies to all other areas of your life too. So if you deal well with today, tomorrow is going to be a brighter future. I also like the quote, sacrifice, the definition is giving up something good for something better. And I think, we tend to think that when we have a decision to make or a place to be or something we're supposed to be doing, and we're sort of on the front side of decision, and we're like, oh my gosh, this is so daunting. There's so much here. I don't know what to do with this. We're afraid and we're concerned and we're worried and all of that stuff. And sometimes we have to remember that the brighter side could be on that other end. And if we give up something now, that we can have that brighter future. And that's just what sacrifice is. So I think if we look at it differently, we'll have a better, more positive outlook on life as well, for any area of your life, finances included.
And I'm curious to get your thoughts on this as well. For anyone living on a fixed income or has a disability,
Yeah.
what would you say to that about smart ways of managing their money?
Yeah, that's a good question. I will say that, you know, I witnessed my dad, who is legally blind, start his own business, a few different things that he would do. And he applied the principle of starting small. He was a massage therapist for many, many years. He still sometimes does massage. I have to always ask dad for a massage sometimes. Um, but he
On a
started.
discount, I hope. Yeah.
Right, exactly, exactly. But I saw him try new things. And I think for many people, trying new things is something that is hard. It's like uncomfortable. It takes you outside of your box. And being willing to trip and stumble over yourself, maybe, and make mistakes. I think we're so afraid of making mistakes that we don't step out on faith and try something new. And so I saw my dad do that, and that was inspiring for me as well. Um, I do think that you need to have partners. I think, and I don't mean business partners. I mean someone that you trust who can look over your shoulder and say, "Hey, I think you ought to do this." I think it's totally fine to outsource. I highly encourage people who are not great money managers to hire that out or have someone to help them in that area as they're growing their business. Sometimes that's the first thing that people need, is someone to like oversee their money matters and bounce ideas off of them candidly on, is this service line something that I need to be doing, or what do you think about how I'm offering this, that kind of thing. So that could be a mentor, it could be a coach, it could be just an advocate. But I think being able to share those numbers with somebody in an accountability fashion is super important. Um, if we think that we can do this by ourselves, let me just tell you right now, we're wrong. so, so I think it's important to lean on people and be honest and open, especially always be looking for someone that you trust to help you navigate some of those challenging times too.
And do your research, right?
Mm-hmm.
Uh,
Absolutely. Do your research. I'm a big fan. I mean, I am a research fanatic. I have Audible. That's one of my go-tos. And so I listen to books all the time. And I find that I'm such a better human because I'm hearing lots of different perspectives. And it helps me really get a better understanding of what might work for me if I were to take the leap and do something different. So I love that. I think doing some research is absolutely a part of how you expand and do well in business.
yeah, I'm gonna ask you to put on your citizen's hat just for a second,
Ah, okay.
because unless you've been living under a rock, you know that the election is
Yeah,
almost a month away,
that's right.
and the economy is something that people are going to be voting on for sure. And
Yep.
since you have a financial background, I'm wondering your thoughts on the current state of the economy and
Yeah.
how it's going to affect the upcoming election.
Wow, gosh, that's a really loaded and powerful question.
That's why I saved it for the
Ah,
end of the interview right
oh
now.
my goodness. Honestly, what I will say, I lead with this quite a lot. People, we have to understand our personal economies. The government isn't going to save us. Now, there can be lots of programs and policies and things that we'll be voting on. Um, and I think we have to get our financial house in order so that we are a bit more insulated from any changes that happen due to the government. Now, having said that, lots of people have been out of work, and it pains me to see all of the agony that lots of people are going into. But I want people right now to tap into their creative brains. Um, and think outside the box. I looked at my business and said, "Am I diversified enough?" And what that means is having different source of income coming in. And I think we all need to do that so we're not dependent on only one place to bring income in. Absolutely get out there and vote. Absolutely make your voice known. Do not sit on the sidelines and allow this to just happen to you because all of our votes count. But I think that in terms of the economy and where we're headed, it's going to always be a roller coaster. It will always be a roller coaster. And so, the best way to insulate yourself is to make certain that you have multiple streams of income, that you're being creative and thinking outside the box. I had someone who was affected by the pandemic. They lost a portion of their income and started doing magic tricks. Now, listen to me carefully, magic tricks over Zoom to help people unwind and relax, and families were doing it. My family did it, and he created a whole new source of revenue during this season because everybody is on Zoom, families and corporations and all of that. um, and so thinking creatively, I paid somebody to take a picture of my family right in front of our home, right at the door, front door photography. And so that's now been a growing business since the pandemic started. We took our photos back in, I think, April or May. And so I think we've got to think outside the box. We can't be dependent on the government. We definitely need to insulate ourselves by having more than one source of income, and trust your gut. Trust your gut because we want to be stronger as a people and not weaker because we're wondering what someone is going to do for us. That is troubling and long-term troubling, no matter
Uh,
who's in office.
and be creative, right?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, that's part of the reason I started this podcast was I don't know if you did any reading on me, but I help people with disabilities find work,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
I worked with the Ontario Chamber of Commerce on a project, and then my contract got suspended because of the pandemic,
Yeah.
and then I started this podcast.
There
So
you go.
gave
There
us
you
an
go.
opportunity to meet. So
Absolutely.
absolutely. So I'm also curious, just before we end the interview, outside of work, what piques your interest? What are you interested in? I know that we both have some Detroit roots, so I'm just
Yes. Yes.
curious to know what keeps you busy outside of work?
Yeah, well, I've got a 16-year-old and a 20-year-old. And so
Well, that you don't have to say anything else. No,
there you go. There you go. But I've been a runner for a while, inspired by my dad. He ran for many, many years. And so I started running, and I've got lots of medals on my wall. So that's been a pastime of mine. I love to read. I've already said that. Enjoy reading books. I probably read two or three a month, listening on Audible. I'm a big fan of Audible. And I honestly like to dance. Oh my gosh, you put any kind of music on, country, reggae, R&B, I will dance. So that's a fun thing for me. It's an outlet. And so I'll be doing a little of that tonight too.
well, we'll both run and dance away from this Detroit Lions season. How about that?
That's
Okay.
right. That's right.
So, if anybody wants to get in touch with your business tailor-made budgets, how do they do that?
Yes, there's two major ways that I would say get in touch. My website itself is tailormadebudgets.com. But I also do a free 7-day money challenge. And so you can sign up on 7daymoneychallenge.com, and you can get a video of me talking about 7 different ways you can improve your finances in a week's time. And so that might be a good way to connect. And yeah, I'm on social, Instagram, Tailor-Made Budgets. You can find Ericka Young on LinkedIn. And I do also have a business Facebook page, Tailor-Made Budgets.
Fantastic, Erica. I had a wonderful time. I'm connecting with you this afternoon. So I want to thank you for your insights and perspective on financial fitness and for hanging out with me this afternoon. So great to see you, and thanks so much for being here.
Thank you so much for having me.
We're done.